I certainly started the recording, so just waiting for the live streaming to start.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Stirling District Licensing Board on Tuesday the 19th of October. We've got a statement here to read out at the start of the meeting. So thank you for attending, and this is the statement on the protocols to be followed during the remote meeting. Please note the meeting is being recorded and live streamed and will be available for public viewing. Can members please mute their microphones throughout the meeting when not speaking? This is important since it helps ensure the quality of the audio for all present. Your microphone should be switched on when invited to speak and switched off when you're finished speaking. Please use the raise hand button to indicate you want to speak. And can officers introduce themselves, confirming their name and role before speaking for the first time on an item? If any members lose connection or have any technical problems during the meeting, please alert the clerk as soon as possible, either with the chat function or email or telephone. I'll now ask the clerk to carry out a roll call of elected members participating in today's meeting.
This is Carla Roth, Deputy Clerk to the Licensing Board. Councillor Benison.
I am here.
Councillor Dodds.
Present.
Councillor Earl.
Present.
Councillor Gibson.
Present.
Councillor Houston.
Present.
Councillor Oxborough.
Present.
Councillor Thompson.
Present.
Councillor Tomash.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
That is everyone present, Chair, and that is obviously a quorum board.
Okay, thank you very much. There's no apologies under item 1. Are there any declarations of interest under item 2? I'm not seeing any hands, but I usually point out as a registrable interest in relation to 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 that I'm a cooperative party endorsed councillor, which is on my register of interest rather than a declarable interest. Item 3, urgent business. There's no urgent business. So item 4 are the minutes of the board 12th of August 2021 and the special meeting of the 5th of October 2021. Unless there's any issues from members who could indicate, can we take those as agreed, please?
Agreed.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll go now to item 5, which is the co-op in Killin.
Thanks, Chair. Stephanie Cameron, Licensing Team Leader and LSO. This is an application for a provisional premises licence for the co-op at Lyon Road in Killin. It's for an off-sales facility with hours requested are 10 AM to 10 PM. The agent for the premises is in the meeting, so if the board wish to hear from her, she can answer any questions that the board may have. There's been no objections or representations received.
Given they are all the same, could I just check, is it in order to take them all at once or just go through each one by one? I should have asked.
No, sorry, Chair, this one's different. This is a provisional premises licence. It's not a major variation.
This is the PPL for that one. I beg your pardon. Yeah, so we'll come to those in a batch together next. Right, yeah. Okay.
So we have Ely on in the meeting to answer any questions or to present the report. Okay,
Ely. Are there any questions from members in relation to this? No, I'm not getting any indication from any questions. Would the representative like to say anything on that basis?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just keep this brief just to give you a flavour of what we're actually asking for here. Good morning, Your Honours. As we've heard from Stephanie, this is an application for a provisional premises licence for a new convenience store in Colleen. This is a new build premises. It's actually nearing completion with the store due to launch at the end of November. Co-op usually obviously plan any new stores quite far in advance. This one, that hasn't been the case for, primarily because there were various delays with planning due to COVID. So assuming the application is granted today, the store would be due to open pretty shortly. This is actually a new store to replace the existing Killin Co-op, which is just around the corner on Main Street. There is a lack of storage space at that new store. It's quite old now, I think over 30 years that's been there for. So they struggle to maintain the stock levels that are required to service the village. So this new store is really just to improve an improved local shopping offer. It'll be quite a significantly larger store, so there'll be various additional lines carried. There's total investment here in the region of £650,000, and the new store will create approximately 4 new jobs. Co-op will be obviously well known to the board. They have various stores in the Stirling board area, and obviously have established procedures and processes in operation across the estate. Those will, of course, be in place at this new store. So that includes a comprehensive training programme for staff, full CCTV coverage, an independent auditing system, and fully automated age-restricted kills. Now, as we've heard, there have been no objections or representations to this application. And as I said, this is simply an application to replace an existing store. So I won't go into any further detail unless the board do have any questions. But otherwise, I'd commend the application to you and move to it this morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Apologies, I should have asked you first and then saw any questions, but just to ask that way, are there any questions anyone has? No? Oh, Councillor Benison?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to clarify something on page 18. There's a conviction at 28/2/2020. Can I ask what that's about, please? What was that for? What had happened there?
Yeah, could you just bear with me one moment, Councillor, and I will just pull that information up, if you bear with me. It's actually an English conviction, and I don't actually have the information in front of me, but if you could just give me 2 minutes, I will find that for you, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Carla Roth, Deputy Clerk, I would direct Councillor Benison to 1.5 of the report on this application, which does set out what the English conviction was for and what the equivalent in Scottish licensing law would be.
Thank you, Carla.
Okay. So it's a corporate body matter rather than an individual issue.
That's correct. And if I could just come in on that, obviously the conviction has, or for all co-op stores across Scotland, has been reported in line with obviously licensing legislation, and the board elected to take no action on that.
Okay, thanks. Any follow-up on that, Councillor Benison, or has that answered the point?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no other questions, are we content therefore to grant the application?
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 6, and there's a series of these. So are we content to take them as a group?
Chair, my advice would be that each application does need to be considered on its merits. I would suggest, therefore, that the board take item 6 once.
Just take them in then. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, item 6 then. If we can get an introduction to that, please.
Yep, Chair. Ailey, could I just check, Ailey, are you staying on for these, or we've got written submissions?
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask, I can stay on if you would like me to, but as you are aware, we have lodged written submissions in connection with them, so whatever the board would prefer.
Yeah, if you're happy to stay on.
Yep, that's fine, just in case there are any questions, no problem at all.
You'd be welcome in case there's any queries. Okay, Stephen, do you want to give us the overview of that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an application for the co-op in Balfron for a major variation. The premises are looking at adding home deliveries to their operating plan. As advised already, the applicant's agent has submitted a written submission to the application. There's been no objections or representations received. So happy to answer questions, or Ailey is available if needed.
Thanks, Steph. Any questions from members? Seeing no hands, are we content therefore to agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Steph, if you could do similarly for item 7, please, and calendar.
Yeah, no bother, Chair. Yeah, this is an application for a major variation for the co-op in Callander. Again, they're looking to add home deliveries. There's been no objections or representations received. The applicant has also submitted written submissions for this application, or Ailey is available if needed to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. Any questions from members? Not seeing any hands. Are we content therefore to agree?
Great.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Similarly with item 8 in Doune Co-op.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is an application for a major variation for the co-op in Doune. Again, it's looking for the addition of home deliveries. There's been no objections or representations. There's also been the written submissions submitted, and Ailey is available if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? Seeing no hands, are we content therefore to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Steph, if we could take item 9, the co-op in Killin.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is an application for the co-op in Colleen, also to add home deliveries. Same as previous, there have been written submissions circulated. There's been no objections or representations received.
Thank you. Any questions from members? No indications. Are we content therefore to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, that's agreed. Thank you. If we can take item 10, the co-op in Killearn, please.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an application for the co-op in Killearn to add home deliveries. Again, as with the others, written submissions. There's been no objections or representations received.
Thank you. Any questions from members? No hands showing. If we're content therefore to agree?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Okay, thank you very much for that, and thank you to the representative for staying with us.
I'm obliged, Your Honours. Thank you.
Feel free to leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ailey Maguire.
The next item
is now exiting.
That's fine. Okay, the next item is item number 11, and that is for the Crossed Peels 8A Spittal Street. If we get introduction to this one, please, and just to check if is there anyone joining us.
No, not for this one at the moment.
So
this is
okay.
Yeah, so this is an application for a major variation for the Cross Peels. The application is looking to change the description of the premises, change its layout, and change operating plans to reflect a major refurbishment. It's including the addition of hotel facilities in the upper floors, and also the creation of a roof terrace. They're also looking at an increase in the on-sales capacity from 707 persons to 867. This is in reflection of the layout changes. There's been no objections or representations received. The applicant has submitted written submissions which have been circulated, but they have also indicated that should the board have further questions on this, that they'd be happy for the application to be deferred to a future meeting, as they're unable to attend this morning.
Okay, Steph, thank you very much. Can I get some feedback from members on that point then, please, if there are any questions that members have that they feel they wish to ask and should defer it? Getting no hands showing. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, Chair, it's really in regard to the fact that nobody has made comment on this. I'm aware that Mercat Cross Community Council aren't meeting, and that could probably be the reason why we've had no objections, because this did cause concern at the time. I have to say the premises seem to be reasonably well run, and I've had no objections since. But I really feel we've got to get better at communicating the applications. But my question would be though, and it's in relation to the rooftop. Has any assessment been done of noise in relation to this?
Who would like to?
I'll answer that, Chair. In terms of noise, that would be a matter for environmental health and the planning process, not a matter for the board, given that noise in the environment is regulated by another statutory regime. And as far as I know, Steph, building standards, planning services haven't come back with any concerns. And if you could confirm, but I believe all applications are referred to them.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no doubt about it. It's on a hill. My concern would be that there might be an attempt to have live music, etc., on the roof. Can we put a condition that it's purely for drinking purposes and it's got to be cleared by I think it's 10 o'clock?
I think it would be a competent condition to say there can't. So I'm sort of thinking on the hoof now. I might suggest that you recommend that condition and delegate to officers to ensure that a competent condition can be phrased. Again, noise and environmental health is regulated by the Environmental Acts, and licensing conditions are not competent if they regulate something regulated by another statutory regime. And officers, I think, would therefore want to consider a little more carefully whether that was a competent condition that could be imposed or not.
Carla, I see Steph's got her hand up. Steph, is it in relation to 1.6, which is making the point that the normal policy for terminal hour for outdoor drinking is 9 o'clock? Is that what you're looking to?
No, actually, it's in response to Councillor Thompson's point about live music. If you look at page 178 of the agenda, it details the operating plan for the premises, and they actually don't have the facilities for recorded music or live performances or dance facilities within their premises anyway, so it's not something that we'd be expecting them to be doing. And if they did want to do anything like that, they would need to come back before the board. So that might allay any fears you have of noise from outside, Karen.
Okay, Councillor Houston, please.
Thanks, Chair. It was specifically about 1.6, as you've just referred to, and the policy considerations also at the bottom of page 164 does say that it is for the applicant to satisfy the board that the area is suitable for outdoor drinking and appropriate safeguards are in place. Now, we don't have the applicant in front of us to ask what the justification is asking for 10 o'clock as opposed to city centre being 9 o'clock. So I do wonder whether or not I'd be concerned about granting this because it's out with our policy. But I don't have the applicant to in front of us to ask her the question about why, obviously knowing they're making an application that's out with policy, why would they do that and why do they think it would be acceptable to this board?
Okay, Carla, you've got your hand up to reply.
I think Steph did clarify in regard to a question at an earlier meeting about the 9 p.m. time that our policy is just 10 p.m. normally for outdoor drinking and doesn't address Stirling City Centre specifically. However, most venues in the city centre need a roads permit for their outdoor drinking space, and the roads permits end at 9 p.m. So a practice of imposing that condition or that terminal has been adopted, and also sometimes if there are actual objections to the outdoor drinking application, then an earlier terminal time has been imposed in response to objections from neighbors, of which there are none here. My understanding is that, in fact, the Cross Peels does already have an existing outdoor drinking space, but it is within their own grounds, didn't rely on a roads permit, and is therefore licensed till 10 p.m. So from the applicant's point of view, my understanding at this point is they are just requesting what has otherwise been on their license for their existing space.
Chair, if I may just come back, I mean, I find that less than helpful, quite honestly. 1.6 very clearly says, and we are board members reading the papers, the applicant has requested a 10 p.m. terminal time for the outdoor drinking area. However, this is out with board policy for Stirling City Centre, where the board would expect a terminal hour of 9 p.m. for outdoor drinking. So we get a clear statement in the paper, and then we get a legal view that says ignore it because that's not correct. That is, to me, as a layperson, far from helpful. So I'm now thoroughly confused.
Excuse me, Councillor, if I could apologize, that is a misstatement in the report, which will be corrected in future, and officers will hold their hands up and apologize to the board for not clearly setting out the distinction between policy and practice, and we will make that clear in the future, and I can only apologize in this instance.
Okay, we do seem to have had a kind of substantial discussion here, and there's some kind of issues and questions that have been raised. So the indication was given at the start that the applicant is not under is relaxed about the timing of this one and whether it should be considered at a future meeting because they're not able to attend today. Might members think that would be the best course for this one? Alistair Tolmash, you've got your hand up, please. Sorry, is it on this kind of aspect?
Yes, it is exactly on that. I think this is an important thing to discuss, and the applicant ought to be before us to give us an answer to our questions. So I would support this being delayed until the applicant can be before us.
Okay, I think it certainly might well be very helpful that we do that. Councillor Ellis, similar?
Actually, no. I was after Graham, Councillor Houston's helpful clarification that was given there by the officers after his question. I think, given that, I don't see any particular need to defer this.
Okay. Councillor Houston.
I would support Councillor Earl in that the advice clearly is that it is within policy. If it's within policy, then as a board I can find no reason in as far as our licensing objectives are concerned to refuse the licence.
Okay. Right, I'll take you, Jim. Then I'll try and progress this. Yep.
Yeah, Councillor Houston, I'm a wee bit confused. I thought your question wasn't particularly answered. I take the view that it's 10 o'clock, but the city centre is 9, and it doesn't matter if they've got a licence off the street or on the street. It's either 9 o'clock or it's not 9 o'clock, and that's where I need some clarity, and I don't have that clarity.
Okay, Carla,
Chair, if I can try to be clear, I mean, there was a misunderstanding between officers as to what the policy was, and a misunderstanding that there was actually a policy of 9 a.m. in relation to outdoor drinking in the city centre, when in fact that is just a normal practice that has resulted from a number of factors, in some instances having to do with the requirements of the roads permit for the outdoor spaces, in other instances with the board imposing an earlier time indirect response to objections to the application from neighbors or police or whatever. But to clarify, and again, to apologize for misunderstanding that was reflected in the report, the policy is 10 p.m. outdoor drinking across the area, obviously with the board being able to impose an earlier condition if justified in the circumstance. In this instance, there have been no objections from the LSO or neighbors or police requesting an earlier time. They are already licensed to 10 p.m. The terminal hour for outdoor drinking is a matter that's dealt with in conditions, so it would still be open to the board for a reason connected to the licensing objective to ask for a condition that would restrict to an earlier time. And my understanding is the board can impose conditions and grant the application, and it would then be for the applicant to come back and seek to vary that. But in terms of policy is till 10 p.m. and we now want to be clear about that. In practice, many venues in the city center have 9 p.m. for a variety of other reasons.
Okay. Does that provide the clarity sought, Councillor Thompson?
No, it doesn't. It muddies the waters, Chair, because you say there's been no objections, but if a member of the public read this document 164 1.6, they would automatically assume it would be 9 p.m. So I don't think we have the clarity. And I do know, having attended Market Cross Community Council, many of the concerns they have is noise emanating from, I'm not specifically pointing out across Peels here, but across the board. People sitting outside at 10 o'clock, etc., etc. So I think it's confusing to the public. And I would like this matter deferred.
Okay. Can I leave that point on pause for a second, because there are two other hands up and I'd like to take some other contributions. I don't know who was first between Councillor Benison and Tolmash, but Councillor Benison, could you go first because you've not contributed yet?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to I do understand that the policy is 10 p.m. We've had various discussions about drinking outside with other licensed premises, so I do understand that it is 10 p.m. and I understand that the practice of some other pubs taking in their tables and things at 9 p.m. to suit other council services. But I wanted to ask if this paper could be deferred. We've asked specifically that the onus is on the licensee to come and talk to us about why they want to have this outdoor space. There is questions that I'd like to ask the licensee, such as it's a rooftop terrace, so I want to ensure that everywhere is seated and we're not going to have people walking about a rooftop terrace and carrying alcohol from one table to the next and chatting to people. In their operating plan, they've got a license for television, so we want to ensure that there's not going to be any televisions up or huge screens up on the rooftop when there's sporting events on or whatever. So there is questions that I would like to ask the licensee, and so I would respectfully request that we defer this until the licensee can come and speak to the board, as I don't think it's helpful just turning it down just because they can't be here today.
Okay, we've had a mix of views there, and I'd like to deal with the question of how we proceed after I've heard from Councillors Tolmash and Oxborough who've got their hands up, and then we'll consider how we proceed.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chair. I want to ask a question. If we do defer it, can consultation be made with the community council and possibly with the neighbours, as there is a question of an inaccuracy in the documentation? So would it be, if there is a deferment, which I do support, would we be able to get that extra the consultation, please? Thank you.
Okay, I would think the answer would be no to that, because the normal consultation has been carried out, and as we know, in licensing, the consultation zone is 4 metres within the premises, and in terms of neighbour notifications, etc., as opposed to planning where it's 20 metres, but licensing is 4 metres. So I don't think that would be possible. We'd have to deal with a matter that's before us. But if I could maybe just get some clarity from the clerk, if my reading of that point would be correct.
There is a provision that the board could defer for further information. And I suppose it's probably a gray area. We cannot, you'd be correct, reopen the consultation. Normally on a deferral, the report would be considered as it was, obviously with the corrections to the information. If I could,
Yep.
I don't know if my colleague Graham is still here, but Graham, would you have a view over whether additional information could be sought in this case, particularly the views of the community council?
Graham Forster, lead solicitor for governance. Thank you, Chair. Just yeah, to pick that point up, I would think that further information would have to be something factual about the nature of the application, the intention of how to run the premises. So to pick up the queries that were asked or raised by Board Member Benison about the what activities might be provided outdoors, how patrons may be seated or standing. I think that would certainly qualify as seeking further information. I think it would be a different matter for the board to undertake a course of action which could be interpreted as giving a second chance for consultees who haven't responded within the formal consultation structure to engage with the application. I would also say I can understand that the comment which is made in the paper, and I think Carla Roth has already recognise that the accuracy of that statement, or the statement is not accurate as was presented in the paper. That issue has been discussed. I think the policy statement the board has is quite clear about the time limitations for outside drinking spaces. They state 10 p.m. Where the board has previously applied an earlier closure time for outdoor drinking spaces, that's a matter that's at the discretion of the board and can be applied where the facts support that. So I think it is reasonable to expect that the board could, in considering this application, grant an outside drinking time up till 10 o'clock. So I do have sympathy with an idea that would be that consultees potentially could have taken a different view, but I think they have been given notice of the board's policy statement and the applications put forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Graham. Yeah, I think that would seem to be clear to me. No member of the public or a consultee would be responding on the basis of an officer report that was published some short number of days ago in terms of the notice for the meeting. People have been responding in terms of the application itself and the policy, which is stated in 4.30 as 10 o'clock. So further information, yes, but further consultation wouldn't be appropriate. Right, Councillor Roxburgh, and then we'll decide how we wish to proceed with this.
Yeah, it was just to move things along a bit and chuck my tuppence worth in, as everyone else has done. I kind of agree with Councillor Earl and Councillor Houston here. It's a perfectly competent application. I don't see any reason why we need to defer this.
Okay, right. So we, at this juncture, we have kind of two proposals that have emerged from members. One to defer the application, and secondly that we don't defer and we continue the determination. So, Carla, would you wish proposers and seconders for both of those points if we move to the vote?
Apologies for not unmuting myself.
Okay.
With the licensing board, if there are two proposals that are moved, we do that by a vote for proposal 1 or proposal 2. It is not the same procedure as, for example, council, where you'd have an amendment and then do the amendment and the motion. So
Okay.
If two things are moved, and then we'll just take a vote for option 1 or option 2.
Okay, well, so I think Councillor Thompson was first to propose deferral, and I think Councillor Houston was first, or was it Councillor Earl was first to propose continuation? Councillor Houston, okay. So, Carla, can you just take I suppose by way of roll call, what members' views on the matter is?
So to be clear, the first option would be deferral, and the second option is determination today.
Yes, we'll deal with deferral first. Councillor Thompson was first to suggest deferral.
Therefore, Councillor Benison, yes or no to defer?
Defer.
Councillor Dodds?
No.
Councillor Earl?
No.
Councillor Gibson?
Defer.
Defer. Councillor Houston?
No.
Councillor Oxborough?
No.
Councillor Thompson?
Defer.
Defer. Councillor Tomash?
Excuse me, to defer.
Defer. Chair, that is a 4-4 vote, and that would call for the chair to cast the determining vote.
Okay, well, people would expect me to say defer, so I would cast that for defer.
Defer. On that basis, the chair's casting vote 5-4. The item is deferred to obtain more information from the applicant, noting that the applicant's agent had volunteered in his written submissions that they would be happy for that outcome if more information was required.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that's that matter for item 11. If we can move then to item number 12, which is Dusk, please. If we can get an introduction to that, please.
Andrew Thompson
is now joining.
Okay, is that Thompson, have you joined us?
Hello, it's Andrew Thompson here from McGregor Thompson. I'm not sure if I'm on live yet.
That's us, we can hear you. You're with us and the meeting's live. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to move to item 12, which is application for Dusk. If we could get the officer introduction, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is an application for major variation of a premises licence for Dusk. The application is seeking to amend the core opening hours, which currently start at 8 PM daily, to begin at 12 noon Sunday to Thursday and 1 PM Friday and Saturday. The application also amends children and young persons access to allow them entry to the premises during core hours until 10 o'clock or for the duration of a bona fide private function such as birthday or anniversary party. It also seeks to change the layout plan to allow outdoor drinking and food service within the front courtyard area. No objections have been received from members of the public. The LSO has lodged representation in relation to the amendment to children and young persons access and proposed a condition stipulating that children and young persons, when not attending a function, must be accompanied by an adult who is having a meal, and if attending a private bona fide event, they must vacate the premises by 1 o'clock. The letter is part of the papers. The applicant's agent, Andrew Thompson, is available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Thompson, anything you'd like to contribute at this point?
Yeah, I'd like to give a general introduction to your honours. I mean, this is obviously historically been a pure nightclub in the city, and my clients are obviously wishing, especially post-pandemic, to make the whole place more of a hybrid venue and something that can actually trade during the day. So that's the overall emphasis on the application, hence obviously the reason for extending the core operating hours in the way that we have. Also, we had a rather curious situation with the external area, because during the course of the pandemic, it was clear from discussion with myself and your licensing officials that the outside area was licensed. It was within the red delineation showing it was a licensed area, but for whatever bizarre historical reasons, we didn't have yes for outdoor drinking area, and so that's been corrected. And on the back of that, my clients wish to take advantage, as the new layout plan shows you, to have an external dining area. And so, as I say, the licensing layout plan shows how that would be facilitated. And at the same stage, we did some minor, I suppose, tidying up of the children and young persons provisions. I think I can possibly make the position slightly easier for your honours, because upon looking at the representation from the LSO, we are happy to amend the application along the lines of the recommendation given, so that basically already it says that children and young persons have to be accompanied by an adult, but and I had wanted the position to be that such children and young persons could attend a bona fide private function for the duration of the function. And whilst personally I don't think that should be a problem, if a function happens to go after midnight, I think parents are responsible enough to consider themselves whether children and young persons should be present beyond that hour. But to make things easy, and because it's not a fundamental part of the business that my clients hope to do, we're happy just to confirm that children and young persons for a bona fide private function would indeed vacate the premises by 1 a.m. And also to stipulate that that if children and young persons are attending the premises after 8 o'clock, it would be for consumption of a meal and accompanied by an adult. In other words, as I say, going with the LSO's representation. But otherwise, I hope that the application's reasonably uncontentious. As I say, it's simply designed to allow the premises to trade more like any normal licensed premises during the day as well as just in the evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I take any questions from members, please, to the officer or applicant? Councillor Benison, please.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to ask the applicant, do you plan to have any kind of entertainment during the day?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by entertainment.
Well, just now you're operating as a nightclub. So are you planning to have any kind of music or live music during the day?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if you mean sort of nightclub type music, no, certainly not. Obviously, there might be, as in any licensed premises, background live or recorded music, but not where, as it were, the principal activity or the principal reason for attending the premises would be for entertainment during the day. It would be background and ancillary to the service of food and drink during the day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Chair. You are one of only 2 nightclubs, and you have extended hours on that basis. Why should we consider you any different from any other premises? And could you justify then why you should get extended hours in the evening?
Well, this is a variation. At the moment, remember that the premises already have the late hours license to be a nightclub venue in the late evenings. This application is simply to draw back the hours so that they can also trade during the day, because previously the premises were only licensed from, I think it was 8 p.m. So it's not as if we're applying to be a late night venue. It's more requesting permission that the premises can trade during the day. I'm not sure if that's answered your question.
Okay, if you get a follow-up, Councillor Thompson.
I don't need a follow-up, but it's something I think we as a board need to look at. In my view, nightclubs serve a special purpose. They're an evening entertainment, and now we've to be treated differently again. So I think it's a policy matter, perhaps more than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
take that as a comment. Yeah.
If I may come in again, I mean,
Yep.
you know, it's times are tough for licensed traders, as obviously you all know, and I should say that my clients are very well organised licensees. They have many places in Edinburgh and Fife as well. This is their only venture in Stirling, but it's actually reasonably unusual when you look at a venue such as this that is only licensed from 8 p.m. So it's not, in many senses, if you look at venues such as this as an overall thing throughout Scotland, all that unusual that effectively a hybrid venue such as this seeks to be a more standard licensed premises during the day, offering a food and drink service, and then become a nightclub in the evening. Many of their other venues are like that, and it's a successful kind of model. So you know, within Scottish terms, it's not terribly unusual. The unusual position is almost as it is at the moment, where it's just pure nightclub. They're only seeking to extend the facilities that they offer to patrons.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Houston has his hand up, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask Mr. Thompson, as applying for a licence from 12 o'clock, you talked about creating a hybrid venue. Given that you want to extend that and extend the business and as part of the recovery plan, which I fully understand, why not go for 10 o'clock and just operate it as a normal pub serving food, etc., and then it changes in the hybrid method at 8 o'clock at night into a nightclub? Is that a business model that's used elsewhere that you're now suggesting that works in Stirling?
Do you mean 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Well, because it's actually, if you look at the hours involved, there's rules about how long a licensed premises can be licensed for. So we've deliberately made sure it's within that, is it the 14-hour maximum period. Whereas if you were licensing it from 10 o'clock in the morning, well, forget that technical side of it, but that is one technical side of it, as your client will advise you about. But actually also, they're saying, look, from lunchtime onwards, it's a kind of they want to be able to offer a lunch service and offer bar meals to patrons, etc. They don't really want to be open at 10 o'clock in the morning, or indeed even 11 o'clock in the morning. They want to operate and offer a lunch service onwards and trade on that basis, but they're not really interested in opening at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There are no other hands up, but if I can ask a question myself. Mr. Thompson, you'll be aware of obviously the recent challenges in the Scottish Parliament in relation to vaccine passports and the difficulties in defining or making it obvious to folks that the law doesn't very well distinguish between what is a nightclub and what isn't a nightclub in terms of the legislation. However, our policy here in Stirling has two categorisations for on sales, and they are for on sales that be classed as vertical drinking establishments, premises where the only main activity is the consumption of alcohol, and the second category is premises offering significant entertainment. And they've got hours until 2 and 3 in the morning. They still have the same start times of 11 a.m, but obviously what you would generally describe as a pub should be shutting at midnight on a Sunday to Thursday and 1 a.m on a Friday and Saturday, and what you would generally describe as a nightclub should be shutting at 2 Sunday to Thursday and 3 Friday and Saturday. So your application, in a sense, you have a premises that has the capacity to be open till 2 and 3 in the morning, be a nightclub, although you have that earlier point of 8 p.m. kind of starting time. You're looking to essentially bring yourself back into pubs or vertical drinking establishments, however you want to term that. So I wondered if I could just get your thoughts in relation, from a policy point of view, you're effectively looking to be a nightclub to also be a pub. So, and a kind of reversal of some of the recent incidents that we've seen, recent applications that we've seen in Stirling. So I wanted just to get your thoughts on what it is that you're doing during the day, because even from the map, some of the areas do have tables and chairs, etc. Are they looking to get cleared away at 8 or 10, or when does the switch flick from your daytime table and chair vertical drinking stuff to the nighttime nightclubby type of stuff? If that's a wide enough question to give you to come back to.
Okay. I'm struggling a bit on the precise operational details, because unfortunately my clients are not able to attend, and with the technology as it is, I was thinking I might be able to call them in at a particular point, but given that I'm using my iPhone for this meeting rather than my laptop, so forgive me, I'll struggle on as best I can on the details. Let me first of all though comment a little bit on your point that you raised regarding the COVID passports, because I, like many licensing lawyers, I guess, have been involved in that a little bit, and one of the areas I'm understanding is that it obviously relates to premises that serve alcohol between 12 midnight and 5 a.m. And so what I find is that it's actually covering just about any premises, whether you call them public house type premises or nightclub type premises, because there's no real distinction these days with many such places. But one example I'm thinking of is a client who is licensed till 1 o'clock and will have hogmanay parties and the like, where there's going to be dancing. And that means that and yet he closes at 1 o'clock, and yet between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock, he's going to fall within the category of needing to have a system in place for COVID passports. So, but it seems to me that in that particular example, and help me out if you disagree, but it actually means that for him, what he does during the day, when he's just allowing people in to have tables and to sit at a table and to have a meal like a normal venue, he doesn't need the COVID passport for that period of time. The system only kicks in for people who may be on the premises between 12 and 1. And in the case of a Hogmanay party, which I don't know, starts at 8 o'clock, you've got this curious world where between 8 and 12, the regulations will not apply, and yet between 12 and 1, they will be. Well, I guess my clients are going to fall into that exact same category. But as you can imagine, they operate at nightclubs and hybrid venues and public houses across the country, as I mentioned to you. And they already have systems and procedures in place which will indeed allow them to fully comply with these latest regulations for however long they actually last for. So yes, they have systems in place, and we'll just accept that even though premises will move into the category requiring COVID passports, they're not always within that category. I should, on the particular operational point of view, I must stress that absolutely, as one of the previous questions alluded to, this is not an entertainment venue per se during the day. It's going to be a premises which seeks to encourage patrons to come in and have a meal and indeed have a drink. But it's not an entertainment venue during the day. As for the operational change into a nightclub, if to use a template in other venues, it would be the case that round about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, the place would morph into a nightclub, so to speak, and there would be a period of time when, yes, indeed, if there were tables and chairs which were on the dance floor, then they would be removed so that the place could be transformed into the nightclub area, as it were. I feel as if that's not a specific answer, but you know, it's a general answer, and it probably just suffices. Yes, the place evolves, as all hybrid venues do, from the daytime activity into the evening activities.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Thompson. If I could maybe, apologies, I maybe shouldn't have mentioned the issue of COVID passports. I suppose my more substantive point was about the phrase is a distinction without a difference between what's a nightclub and what's a pub. So for argument's sake, you know, some what might be regarded as pubs have over time sought to effectively become nightclubs. And we've had representations from nightclubs, perhaps including Dusk, to say, well, actually, Dusk and Fubar are the nightclubs. If all the pubs just become nightclubs, what's a nightclub? But obviously your application is the reverse of that, and it's a nightclub looking to become a pub, and perhaps a pub might reasonably say, well, if all the nightclubs want to become pubs, what's a nightclub and what's a pub? So if I could maybe just get a few thoughts on you as to the direction of travel for yourselves in relation to becoming a pub in that general sense.
I mean, I have a sort of difficulty with the question in some senses because you're using phraseology which was removed when the 2005 Act came into place, and of course, what one does now is one lists one's activities, and as was already in place. It had bar meals, conference facilities, receptions, live music. You know, that describes the activities which take place. And yet, historically, it had been just a pure nightclub, to use that 1976 terminology. And that's why it had licensing hours from 8 o'clock, I think it was, until 2 or 3 in the morning. All I can do is repeat what I said, which is they simply wish to be licensed from lunchtime so that they can have a full trading day and evening and early morning, so that they can be a normal public house type premises, if you want to put it like that, serving bar meals, etc. During the day, and then evolve into the nightclub that they are later.
If I could maybe just ask one specific, and there's another hand up as well, I'll let the next person in after that. So for argument's sake, you know, you open it, well, I can't remember what it was in the normal times, you know, 10 o'clock or whatever, and it's £5 to get in or whatever. how and when do you flick the switch of, right, tables and chairs away, pubs closed, we're now moving to nightclub style operation, or is it, are they not planning to do that? Because that's when we're getting into whether it's a vertical drinking establishment versus, significant entertainment, where places would contend, well, there's a big dance floor and, nobody's sitting around kind of thing, we'll get music on, etc.
I think because I'm struggling to answer, I think that what I ought to try and do is use another phone to contact my client and try and bring him into this conversation, because, I totally appreciate your questions, and I feel as if I'm not answering you as well as I can. Is it possible to take a 2-minute break, and then I can try and get Scott Piakowski on the telephone, on another telephone, so that we can try and get this covered off?
I think you're just with us on the phone, and I'm laughing because one of my colleagues is being very animated and looking to get in. I'm going to let you in, Martin. Please come in.
Right. Thank you. Can we please just determine this? Please. Can we just do it now? Please. I don't see any other point. It's been, again, another fascinating meander around a number of subjects, but this is not relevant to this application and to what is before the board. Can we please move to determination?
I mean, I
think we can do that. I think the relevancy to what we're discussing, I would respectfully disagree with you. I'm discussing policy 455 in relation to vertical drinking establishments, 1 and 2 premises offering significant entertainment. So I think it's very much relevant to the board's policy, because we actually define in our policy better what you might think is a nightclub and a pub than probably legislation. So anyway, I probably don't think there is much merit in seeking any further inputs from any external parties. I think we'll leave it at that, and I'll see if there's any other questions from members. There's no hands showing. Well, actually, Carla's hand showing. Carla, do you wish to contribute to this? Sorry, Councillor Benson.
I was just going to confirm for the record and the sake of the applicant's agent, noting that they are currently licensed as a venue providing significant entertainment, and the hours requested are within board policy for that sort of venue.
Okay, thanks, Carla. Councillor Benison, and then we'll move on.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to raise a point of order. My computer crashed there, so I was out of the conversation for a few minutes. Am I still allowed to take part in a vote?
Okay. Sorry, I missed you leaving us.
It was only for a few minutes, but I know that I need to be present at the whole debate to take part in the vote. So.
You didn't miss anything, Maureen.
We could do it all again.
No, it's okay.
Well, I trust you were watching on YouTube in a second screen, Maureen. So I'm sure you heard it all.
Okay, thank you.
And Chair, just to confirm, officers were aware of where Councillor Benison's laptop battery expired, and I believe the discussion during the interim was not about the application per se. It was about whether or not to defer, which might be relevant to a deferral decision, but wouldn't be relevant to a vote on determination of the application.
I don't think anyone's proposing to defer, don't we?
Okay, thanks, Carla.
I don't think no one's proposing to
I
defer.
meant temporary deferral so that the agent could bring his client in.
Oh, sorry, yes, okay. There was a request as to whether they could, there was a procedural question as to whether they wished to go and get an external party from the client into the meeting, but no, that's fine. So I think that's probably in order that you're okay to continue participating. Councillor Benison, thank you for seeking that clarity. Okay, if there are no other questions from members, can I ask if we're content to agree the application?
Sure.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, could I expand? I mean, you mentioned the point about vertical drinking, and I know that I just for clarity for the people who are watching this, I've already asked the question offline why this doesn't come under the policy of over provision. Perhaps the officer could explain.
Thank you.
Chair and members, the policy on over provision is in respect of the number of licensed premises in the over provision area of the city center. It doesn't address the cumulative impact of individual capacity. So hours of operation or number of people in a particular establishment are not covered by the policy. The policy is just in regard to overall number of licensed premises, and this premises is already licensed.
Your Honour, am I allowed to summarise as well, just before you go to a vote?
Well, I think we're just looking to proceed with the matter. I don't think there was a particular question to either Mr Thompson, so unless, Councillor Thompson, you've got a follow-up, that point has been answered. I think we'll just move to our determination on the application. Although you've raised the point of over provision, I've also raised the point in relation to policy. I'm personally uncomfortable with the situation between pubs and nightclubs in relation to our policy there, but I don't feel there's grounds that would allow me to formally move against the application that's there in legal terms. I'm not sure that would be able to be substantiated legally, even though I do have that discomfort and I do have certainly questions about our policy in relation to it. So I would certainly be of the view that we move to proceed it now, and unless anyone's otherwise minded, would ask if members agree.
Chair, just in a point of order, I think the applicant's representative is entitled just to do a summing up as part of the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide that opportunity if you'd like to.
Well, in many senses, it was dwelling on the point just made, that it was a reminder that fundamentally this is an application that, to my knowledge, does not breach any of the licensing objectives. Certainly there's been no indication in any of the questions or representations that the application does breach any of the licensing objectives. Nor, to my knowledge, has it been stated that it breaches your statement of licensing policy. And if we look at the application per se, it's an uncontentious application in many senses. We're simply seeking to allow the premises to trade within the hours permitted during the day, and to have an outdoor drinking area which will be used with the tables and chairs set out. So yes, it just re-emphasises the point that unless the board have actually indicated and given me some clues as to why such an application would be refused, the normal sort of rule is that it should be granted, and I've certainly moved on that basis.
Okay, Mr Thompson, thank you very much for that. As I indicated there, my own questions and discomfort, if you like, but not in a position to, I feel, robustly move otherwise. So I'm asking members if we are able to agree the application that's before us.
And just to please, but
apologies, sorry, we'll move to the determination now. I'm very sorry.
As amended by with accepting your LSO's representation, so it is as amended. Sorry. Yes,
are we agreeable to the application as you've agreed to amend it during the meeting? Yes. Thank you for that. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay. Right. Thank you very much. We'll move to item number 13 now, which is the Sainsbury store.
Thank you, Your Honours.
So Thompson, you can feel free to leave us now if you wish.
Andrew Thompson
is now exiting.
Okay, if we can get the officer introduction to item 13, Sainsbury's Drip Road, please.
Sorry, I thought I'd unmuted there. Yeah, sorry, this is an application for a major variation of premises licence for Sainsbury store at Drip Road. The application is looking to amend the premises description. It's also seeking to add recorded music and live performances, home deliveries and click and collect to the operating plan. No objections have been received from members of the public. No objections or representations have been received from the Licence and Standards Officer or the police. And there's been written submissions circulated to members for this one.
Okay, any questions from members in relation to this? Getting no indications. The only comment I would make just about the store just generally is it's a slightly strange store in terms of the layout with alcohol facing onto the frozen section, etc. But I suppose that's a layout question and not for us today. So anyway, if there are no questions or comments, are members content to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. And we'll move now to item 14, which is also Sainsbury's, but this time in the King's Mall, Stirling.
Thanks, Chair. Yep, again, this is an application for Sainsbury's at King's Mall. Again, it's looking to amend the premises description and also seeking to add recorded music, live performances, home deliveries and click and collect services. No objections have been received and written submissions have been circulated. So that's just up to the board to make a decision.
Okay, any questions from members? No questions? Are we content to agree?
Agreed.
Okay,
Agreed.
That's agreed. Thank you very much. If we can move to item 15, which is the Woodhouse in Kippen, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think we're just waiting on the applicant coming in to this meeting, so if you just give me a wee second.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, Chair, we're aware that the report refers to an area colored green on the layout plan, which won't be in members' papers, which are black and white. And I believe the governance officer can share a colored version of the layout plan on screen if that would be helpful to board members.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I can share that when prompted. It's Eileen Moore here, support officer.
Yeah, do you want to just bring that up just now, Eileen, and then we can have a
No
look
problem.
at what's
No problem.
Okay, can I just check, is everybody happy to have viewed the coloured diagram?
Yeah, that's quite clear.
Yep. Okay, Ellie, I think we've all registered that. Thank you very much.
What I could do, Chair, is I could give an introduction on the application while we wait to see if the applicant does join into the phone.
Yes, I think if there's a challenge there, bringing the person, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so again, it's a major variation to premises the Woodhouse Kippen. The premises are looking to add an additional outdoor area as outlined in green in the layout plan that you've just saw. They're also seeking to amend the operating plan, which increases the on-sales capacity from 90 people to 150, which would be 80 outdoors and 62 people indoors. No objections have been received from members of the public or the Licence and Standards Officer or Police Scotland.
Okay, thanks very much. If we are struggling to get someone to join us, could I maybe just check if members did have any questions that we're looking to ask of the applicant, because we might not, in the nicest possible way, have required their attendance. No, I'm getting no indications that anyone has any questions for the applicant. Could I just get some clarity? Is it in order that we just proceed?
Sorry, Chair. Carla Roth, Deputy Clerk, was having trouble with the mute button. If the board has no questions for the applicant, particularly no concerns or objections they would want the applicant to be heard on, then I think it would be in order to continue to determine the application if there's no real prejudice to the applicant not being here, because no questions would be asked in any case.
Okay, thank you. Members content that we do so? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. In that case, then, can I ask if there are no questions from or comments from members, if we're content to agree the application before us?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's item 15. We'll then move to item 16, which is an application for extended hours. And I think we're going to be joined in this one as well.
Yes, Chair, we're just contacting the applicant just now.
Thank you. If we're struggling with this, should we perhaps allow the attempts to reach them to continue and then deal with 17 and 18, since they are there? We'll just...
Agreed.
Members be happy to go, just put a hold on 16 just now, and we'll let you try and reach them. Getting a few thumbs up there, that's fine. Okay, we'll come back to 16 shortly. Can I move to item 17, which is a list of decisions taken under delegated authority, please? The members have any questions in relation to that? No indications. Can we agree that then?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. And then item 18 is the proposed licensing board dates on page 297. Does anyone have any date singular for the 22nd of February 2022? Any questions from members about the date proposed? No. Okay, if we can take item 18 as agreed then, please. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, so agreed.
Paul Smith.
Thank you very much.
Is now joining.
Okay, hello, Mr. Smith.
Hello, Paul Smith here.
Hi there, Mr. Smith. You actually joined the licensing board meeting, which has been recorded and broadcast on the council's YouTube channel, just for your information.
Yep, thank you. I've been tuning in already.
Okay, thank you. You'll have seen the arrangement then. So we're going to move now to item number 16, which is the application for extended hours for Foo Bar, Maxwell Place, Stirling. If we could start with the officer introduction, please.
Yep, sorry, Chair. This is an application for an extended hours for the Foo Bar. The premises have requested extended hours for Wednesday, 27th of October until 3 AM, Thursday the 28th of October until 3 AM, Friday the 29th until 4 AM, and Saturday the 30th of October until 4 AM. The current terminal hours for the premises are Sunday to Thursday till 2 and Friday and Saturday till 3 AM. As part of the application process, they've given reasons for why the extended hours is needed, and these are all detailed on page 278 of the agenda. The application is also there. I would suggest the board hear from the applicant on why the extended hours are required.
Okay, thank you, Steph. Okay, Mr. Smith, if you'd like to introduce the application to the board, please.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, Your Honours, and thank you for the opportunity of being able to make a submission to you today. Just by way of setting the scene, Your Honours will be aware that the nighttime economy, late at night part of hospitality, was the first to close on March 23rd, 2020, and was the last to be allowed to open again. I can tell Your Honours that's been one very long 583 days since the premises last traded. 1 year, 7 months and 4 days. I can even give you that in terms of the number of minutes and the number of seconds the premises have been closed. Such has the heartfelt effect of the closure on the late night sector. Your Honours may also be aware that when these premises, or this late night, was allowed to open again in Scotland, Foo Bar didn't open straight away. 2 reasons for that, Your Honours, is we just wanted to take a little bit more time just to see how things were going to settle with COVID and the reopening. Your Honours will be aware that licensed premises were allowed to open for a short time and then required to close again. So we didn't want to be in the position of reopening to have to close the premises again, and thought it more prudent just to take a little bit more time and see how things settled down with the progress of vaccinations and how we were getting through the battle with the pandemic. I also wanted to take the opportunity to reconfigure inside the premises, Your Honours. One of the things that the restrictions brought around during the time was people weren't allowed to stand at bars or move around in the same way. So we looked at the interior of the premises and decided to quadruple the number of seating areas to make it more loungy, more comfortable, more table service, and less people being able to stand at the bar. Those reconfiguration is almost complete, and we should be ready to open on time for the first of the applications that comes before you now. Just a quick few pieces of information in terms of late night sector, Your Honours. Since the pandemic has hit, the late night sector has lost 90,000 jobs due to COVID. It, in fact, contributes 1.6% of the UK's GDP at a value of £36.4 billion. and accounts for 425,000 jobs nationwide, of which our sector's just lost 90,000. To say that late night is beleaguered would be an understatement, and we are very keen once again after such a long period to be ready to reopen and to cater for our very many frequent followers that we have locally and wider, Your Honours. So turning to the application itself, this is Halloween, for the Halloween week. Your Honours will be aware that Halloween is now the most important festival, if you like, in the calendar. It's more important than Christmas, and it's more important than Easter. People love to enjoy coming out and making the most of dressing up over Halloween. As a reopening bang, if you like, we decided to have a full-on celebration over the number of nights, and you'll see from the application that we've tried to put as much detail in as we can, being very conscious that Your Honours have asked in the past when extended hours applications come in to give much detail instead of just asking we want to extend the hours, to be able to show the reasons behind why we wanted to extend the hours. And short of Your Honours wanting me to go through every line that's on the application for each day, we did attempt to put in there as much of the detail to explain what's happening on each of the nights, who we've got appearing from national, international DJs, and all the detail that's there. Just a few points on the extended hour and some of the benefits that might come from this. We might well be asked the question, is this just out there to extend the drinking time? Well, although we're seeking an additional hour, it's not for the sole purpose of extending drinking. I think I've presented to Your Honours in the past that people come out with a certain amount of money in their pocket and they'll spend that money usually over the hours that are available. By granting another hour, that will stretch out the time that they consume roughly about the same amount of alcohol. And I think one other added advantage which can't be overlooked at this present time is the shortage of taxis on our streets and the very long waits that people are having to face to get a taxi. I had one myself last weekend coming back from Edinburgh, and I had to wait an hour and a half just to get a taxi. So what we need to be careful of is once the nightclubs open again, the footfall in the city centre is going to increase greatly, and that'll put more pressure on the taxi queues outside. But by granting this extra hour, it'll stretch out the time that people are leaving the premises and hopefully ease some of that pressure on the taxi queues.
Okay, I can ask you just to close down your introduction, please.
Yep, certainly. I'm happy to answer any questions that Your Honours might have. So here to answer questions.
Thank you very much for that. I'm sure we'll hear again if we've got some questions from members. There's a hand up already. Councillor Tolmash, please.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Paul, for that. So I have a question. You said that your clients are coming with a certain amount of the cash to spend, and that's what they spend. Can I ask you, is it just a cash, or can people use the cards, which suggests if they could use the cards, it's not just limited to the cash they've got? Thank you.
Yes, we take cards, and cards are becoming more popular than cash. People set themselves a budget usually when they come out. So since the growth of card use, and we've analysed that it hasn't increased the spend per head over what the cost of inflation has added to that. So when we analyse the figures, we're roughly getting the same spend per heads once we allow for cost inflation on the price of the alcohol.
Thank you.
I hope that answers the question.
Councillor Benison was next, please.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to ask Mr. Smith, you've made mention to the what you've described as shortage of taxis on the streets outside, and you'd be aware that the footfall would be increased when people were leaving the premises. Given that you want to allow people to be drinking for an hour longer, my concern is for people's public safety and waiting for taxis, etc. And also, you've made mention that people will be coming from across Scotland to the reopening of the FUBAR. What kind of responsibility would the FUBAR take for the public safety of the patrons coming out of the premises at 3, 4 in the morning and having to wait in taxi queues? Would the FUBAR be willing to put on some kind of steward at the taxi queue to ensure the public safety, particularly for young women who may be on their own and have got separated from their friends?
Yes, thank you for that question. Firstly, to address anyone who comes from out with the area usually makes their own transport arrangements. So they'll come in by car or minibus and they will transport them home. The benefit, to address the specific question on taxi queues, the benefit of the extra hour would elongate the amount of people that come out at one time. So rather than all disgorging at the terminal hour, some people will start to leave as they do earlier on, and then some people will stay until the extended terminal hour, so hopefully reduce the amount of pressure that's put on the queue. Your Honours might be aware about the issue about taxi stewards is one in which Pub Watch and the bid service and the forum have been involved in the past, where arrangements at certain times of the year are made to put taxi marshals on to, amongst other things, help with the safety of the public. In terms of a particular premises putting their security on, our insurance would not allow that directly. So our people are employed to be on the premises in the immediate vicinity of the premises. So our insurance would not allow the duties of our security to take on a public order, if you like, duty by going onto a taxi queue and carrying out services for the security on the streets. So no premises would be allowed to do that directly, but premises have worked with the bid, with Pub Watch and with the licensing forum to put taxi marshals on at certain times of the year. And I am aware that those discussions, when to do that, is still ongoing. We do take the safety of our patrons very seriously. As you'll know, our stewards are SIA trained plus, and also happy to say that the premises FUBAR was awarded the National Best Bar None national winner for the second time, meaning that of all the licensed premises in the whole of Scotland, FUBAR has been adjudged to be the safest of every licensed premises in the whole of Scotland for the second year. So we're very proud of the resource that we put into 30 cameras recording throughout the premises, stewards all trained to SIA plus. We do watch what goes on in the immediate vicinity of our premises. I'm aware the police are very entirely happy with the way that the premises are run, and we also do, Your Honours may be aware, there's a bit of an issue just now over drink spiking. We launched a campaign many years ago called Be Aware, which we're intending to relaunch again before reopening, and also to look to provide other measures that when someone buys a bottle or has a glass, that there is a protective cover that goes over the top of those items, just to help reduce the risk of any drink spiking. We have asked Angela, we have services where lone females can book a taxi, and our stewards will escort them out to the street, record the information of the taxi, get them safely into a taxi and move them home. Hopefully that addresses some of your questions.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. can I just ask just for a bit of clarity? You'd indicated about the possibility, when there are big events, Christmas time you mentioned, etc., that there's discussions with the bid about that kind of provision. Just for clarity, is that, and I appreciate it's nothing we can kind of compel you to do if you like, but are you in discussions at the moment because of the application that's before us to examine the possibility of putting such a provision in? Is that something that has been explored at the moment? I appreciate it might be possible, it might not be possible, but is it something that you're looking at just now?
I know that there have been discussions. I can't be precise as to where that is. Suffice to say that we always stand ready to work with the police, with the bid, with Pub Watch, with the licensing forum, and do everything possible to make sure that services, be whatever they are, street pastors, taxi marshals, whatever it is that the recommendations come forward, we would fully support them. I don't have the up-to-date position on that particular point, Your Honour.
Okay, but is it something that you will consider prior to the event, if it's the schedule that's there, if it is agreed? Is that something
yes,
you at least examine? And as I say, it might be possible, it might not. We can't compel you to do it in relation to this application, but it's just that reassurance of, is it something that is being actively considered at present?
I'm
or
happy
if you're not aware of it, is to check it out and see if it is something that's possible to put in place.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to pick it up and run with it. I'll take it up directly with the bid and see where it is. I'm happy to report back on that as well.
Yeah. My secondary one, which is related, was you might be aware of a recent publicity around East Dunbartonshire Council Licensing Board have implemented additional criteria for late licence applications in relation to ensuring that there's transport home for staff late into their shifts. Obviously, it's not something that's part of our criteria at the moment, but I wondered if you had any provision for staff on a late opening basis. Just generally, it might be something you do for your staff already. I just wondered if that was a thing that you do offer to your staff for getting them home too.
Did you mention West Dunbartonshire there?
It was East Dunbartonshire have put it into their late conditions. It's not something we have here. We might review that in the future, but it is topical at the moment of they're the first licensing board in Scotland to make it an actual condition that staff provision is given for getting people home in the wee small hours.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that, Your Honour. I have to say I'm the chair of the West Dunbartonshire Licensing Forum, and certainly it's not something that's came up at West Dunbartonshire. If it has now happened in East Dunbartonshire, I'm sure that will become a trade-wide point of discussion for which the trade associations and operators will debate and have a look in. In terms of this particular application, I'm happy to look at how our staff get home and where possible, if we can assist to get them home safely. So I can give you that undertaking that we'll look into that.
That's reassuring. Thank you for that. Councillor Dodds is the only other person with their hand up now.
Thank you. You realise, Mr. Smith, this is out with our licensing objectives, and obviously our licensing objectives in relation to the hours is also to prevent crime and disorder, securing public safety, preventing public nuisance, protecting and improving health, and protecting children and young persons. Now, each application is treated on merit. Now, if you are successful today in having this application granted, each application that you submit in the future, no doubt, no disrespect to you, sir, that you will, this will be a test case for you, I think. And if it's conducted correctly, as you promise, and people exit and do what they think, then obviously you are then setting an example. And I remember you submitted a paper a long time ago about extending an hour's applications in relation to other areas, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Dunfermline, Kirkcaldy, Livingston, and Falkirk and Dumbarton, and actually extend their hours to 4 a.m. I don't like 4 a.m, but that's just my opinion. But I would say that if this application is granted, I would hope the board will look at any application that comes before us again for a 4 a.m. in relation to this test case, because if it obviously goes wrong for you, then obviously it's not going to look very futuristic for any future event. So I just hope that the words that you've said in relation to public leaving and all the precautionary measures that you're going to put in place obviously actually works, and we'll see. But that's my opinion.
Okay. Smith, I don't know if there's a response you would want to give that, perhaps more of a comment than a question, I guess.
Yes, it's a comment, Chair.
Yeah, okay. We'll get Councillor Houston. Carla, your hand's up as well. Are you looking to come in at this point, or can I take Councillor Houston?
Yes, Chair. In relation to that point, I think this may be a juncture where it would be useful to clarify the point that Councillor Dodd raised about policy. The applicant will be aware that in the past there has been perhaps a different interpretation of policy at times in which the extended hours were taken as being within policy if the application was for an additional hour to the times the premises were licensed for. It's suggested on current reading that the policy is within an extended hours if within policy for an additional hour if appropriate and other criteria are met, but providing that still stays within the maximum terminal time for this type of venue. So for the sake of the applicant and knowing what they're addressing, I think it would be fair to clarify what the board's interpretation or what the board is stating its policy is, because there has been some unclarity about that, I think.
Okay, thank you, Carla. Councillor Houston, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, if I may, on page 278 1.4, it details 3 conditions that were attached to extended hours applications prior to COVID. Would I be correct in assuming that those 3, if the board was minded to grant this application, would also apply to this application, i.e. the smoking zone relocated from the rear to the premises to the front, customers leaving the premises to exit via the front doors onto Maxwell Place, and all doors on the premises to remain closed where possible? Am I correct in assuming that those would automatically be carried forward if we were to grant this? Thank you.
Carla Roth, Deputy Clerk here. They would not automatically carry forward, but it may be appropriate to oppose again if extended hours were granted in this circumstance. That may be a question you'd want to put to the applicant. He's mentioned refurbishment, and there may be a logistical question as to whether that kind of rerouting would be possible with the reconfigured layout.
Okay, thanks, Carla.
Thank you. Could I ask Mr. Smith to reply to that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we could get your feedback, Mr. Smith, on those 3 points. They've been the kind of custom and practice in the past for the extensions, and is that still feasible where this to be granted today?
It's still feasible, Your Honours. I'm not so convinced it improved the position last time, but might I suggest that we consult with your LSO and with the police on the issues, and if it's deemed that those conditions are best to be put back into place, I would be happy to accept them. But I think what we want to do now is just look at the town centre where the taxi queues are and just make sure that we're just not shifting issues around. So in principle, yes, happy to accept them, but I think we'd want to make sure with the police and the LSOs it's the best thing to do.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm getting no other hands up. Can I then seek members' views in relation to the application, please?
Happy to approve the application, Chair.
To approve, okay.
I'm happy to approve, Chair.
To approve. Anyone else that's not indicated so far?
Sorry, I don't think I said I'm happy to approve, Chair.
To approve. Okay, I think everyone's indicated. I would indicate I'm happy to approve as well. I think the point's been made. It is an event of local significance here, so I appreciate normally the board policy is that Halloween would be classed as a one day, and ironically the one day that's not been applied for here is Halloween itself of the 31st of October. I suppose arguably it goes into the Sunday morning, but the premises is reopening. It's to be a celebratory event. That's the event of local significance here is the reopening of a refurbished venue, and on that basis I can I'd be willing on the merits of this application to support it as well. So I think that would be the unanimous view therefore of the board, is to approve the application, and for clarity we will look to delegate to the officers in consultation with the applicant and the LSO and the police in relation to the conditions about smoking, customers exiting the premises and the doors being closed where possible. So I'm quite happy to propose that we do delegate that to officers to put in place if it's appropriate, and that will let them review the new layout and where taxi ranks are, etc., and just help put a better picture in place for all concerned, I think. Okay. So, Carla, you've got your hand up.
It would be very useful for officers if the board could please clarify its understanding of the policy on extended hours and whether the board does consider that extensions that go beyond midnight or 1 a.m. for pubs and restaurants and beyond 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. for significant entertainment are in fact out with policy, and therefore the board would expect them to come to the full board for determination. As most of the venues in our area are licensed to the maximum terminal area and policy already, that will involve quite a few extended hours applications coming before the board, and we will need to make premises aware of that because additional processing time would be required. So would be grateful if the board could clarify its policy.
Carla, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is the application that's before us is in relation to a special event of local or national significance under 4.65. That is in respect of Halloween. So, had it just been an application for Halloween, i.e. on the 31st of October singularly, it would have been dealt with through delegated authority in consultation with the chair and vice chair, and the presumption would be to grant. But it's because it's for these 4 days prior to Halloween, it's out with when we state we would be pretty much able to it.
With respect, I would draw your attention to paragraph 2.3 of the report on page 279, which specifies that the board should note that this application is for an extended terminal hour, which is out with the terminal hour contained within the policy. And that is the matter that we're trying to clarify because
it's what I'm saying, Carla, is it's because it is out with our stated policy that the matter is even before us at all today. Had it been within policy, this application would never be here, and nor would anyone else's. If people apply for Easter weekend or a Mayor Spring Bank holiday or Halloween itself or the patron saints days, that will be dealt with officers in consultation with the chair and vice chair, with a presumption that to grant unless there's a real objection from the police or something over it. So the situation is clearly here today because it is for the 4 days prior to Halloween, so it is out with Halloween. It could have been for 4 days last week or the week before and it would still be here.
I understand that, Chair. I'm just clarifying that the statement that it is out with policy in the respect that it asks for a terminal hour, which is out with the terminal hour contained within the policy, is not the reason that the board needed to consider it. I'm sorry, I don't know how to be clearer, but there has been a suggestion that no extended hours application that seeks an additional hour beyond the normal licensed hours of midnight, 1 a.m. or 2, 3 a.m., regardless of what it's asking for or whether it's otherwise within policy. There's been a suggestion that it is with policy simply for that reason of the hour being sought being with the normal licensed hours. And it's a question of whether the board would confirm that that's their understanding of the policy. That's what they meant by the policy.
Okay, Chair, I don't. Apologies, colleagues. I'm just going to try and draw the matter to a close, I think, because I don't think we can helpfully consider this matter right here at this juncture. I'm not going to have the board take any kind of decision or express a view in relation to that, Carla, just at this meeting. That's a discussion I think would be best having offline if we need to, because it does seem pretty clear. There's no other reason for it being here, so I don't want to elongate the meeting particularly. So I would, unless those with hands up are champing at the bit to have their hands up, I would propose to bring the meeting to a close at this point. Hands are down, hands are down. We've got one hand that's remaining up.
Here, there is another item of business, number 19.
Alistair, would you like to stay your piece?
Would, but I don't want to prolong the meeting in a bit. I think, from my understanding, as long as the decision we have made doesn't set a precedent for other decisions, that's all we need to agree on, that this is not a precedent for other decisions, and all other decisions would have to go through due process. I think that's all we need to agree on today.
Indeed, but we've decided this application on its own merits, to me, as we would decide any application on its own merits. And the policy clarification discussion I would propose we have offline. And yes, apologies, item 19 is on the other page of my agenda sheet, so we do still need to dispense with item 19. So anyway, that was the decision in relation to item 16, FUBAR, having already dealt with 17 and 18. So thank you, Mr. Smith. If you're still with us, you can leave the meeting if you wish at this point, as having taken the decision already on your application.
Thank you, Your Honours. I'm obliged.
Okay.
Paul Smith
is now exiting.
Okay, so the over the page item is item 19, which is extended opening during the festive season. Obviously the paper is there, members will have seen it. Are there any particular questions that members have in relation to the paper? Councillor Houston.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with the paper, but are we going to invite the premises just to advise us if they intend to open, so we could liaise with Police Scotland so that they would be able to deploy the resources appropriately? So we're not asking them to apply and do all that. I think I support that, and it saves them money and it saves our staff time, which is great. But if with some form, as I think we've done in the past, of just notifying their intent to open, then as I say, that may help in the resource planning for Police Scotland, our colleagues there. Thank you.
Okay, who would like to offer a view on that? Liam Livingston.
Chair, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. That would be a huge help if we knew the premises that were going to open late.
Okay, are officers, council officers, content with that?
Yes, we will have to advertise the policy, and so I see no reason we couldn't ask the premises notify us for the sake of planning. We can't make that a requirement, I don't think, but we can certainly ask, and I would expect most of the trade would be happy to comply.
Okay. On that basis, therefore, and there being no further hands raised, are we content to agree it with that condition?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, that brings the public meeting to a close. Thank you everybody for your attendance today. We can stop the recording.
And thank